Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. I want to thank you for spending time with me and welcome you to my e-commerce and alternative selling methods webinar. My name is Christopher Garcia, and I'm the Business Development Specialist at the SBDC at UNM Valencia campus. I created this webinar based off of a great article called Selling Without a Store by Tamara E. Holmes. She actually wrote this article in 2012, and she was well ahead of her time. You'll receive a copy of the article and the follow-up email. In fact, I sent it out early, and let me show it to you right now. So here's the follow-up email you will receive. It will come from NMSBDC webinars at nmsbdc.com. And it has a PDF of the slides and links to everything that we're going to talk about today. Perfect. Before we begin, let's go over some webinar ground rules. Everyone on the call right now is muted, so don't worry about background noise. And there's a feature to raise your hand, and I'll use it throughout the webinar to make sure it's flowing. And if at any time during the webinar you don't see or hear me, please raise your hand so I know there's something going on. In fact, everybody on the call right now, will you please raise your hand for me so I know you're able to do that? Perfect, perfect. Let me lower all hands. And then there's a Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. And if you put any of your questions regarding the slide presentation into the Q&A, I'll answer that at the end of the presentation. There's numbers on each slide, so if you want to revisit a slide, please put your slide number. So I want to test the Q&A. I just want to see if you could use the Q&A. So everybody on the call right now with me, would you put a hi, hello, how are you in the Q&A, just so I know it's working? Okay, and if you need to contact me because maybe you can't hear me, you can't see me, the slides aren't advanced, and you could always put that in the chat. I like you to put your questions regarding the presentation in the Q&A because I could generate a report of that after. And it indexes them on the recording as well. This is my slide that I used to promote our training offerings. And this is a little bit dated, it's from January, so let me show you. I'm sure since you've registered for this webinar, you know where to find our trainings on our website, but I'll show you anyway. If you visit our website, it's nmsbdc.org. You could go to the upper right-hand corner next to counseling. You'll see SBDC workshops and events. You click here for a list of the workshops. And as you can see, here's today's webinars. We have a lot today, actually. There's some pretty cool ones coming up. Let's see what's coming up. The Are You Tax Ready is always a good one. So please visit our website and sign up for more webinars. They're free because of our COVID funding, so take advantage of those. Okay, perfect. So here are the objectives and the agenda for today's webinar. I'll explain how the SBDC can assist you, introduce you to the marketing plan, introduce methods for taking your business online or selling in another way, and provide practical resources to assist your business with an online presence. It's a lot to cover in one webinar, but I think everybody's up to the challenge. Okay, here's a graphic of our center locations throughout New Mexico. And the mission of the SBDC is to build skilled entrepreneurs and strong businesses by offering no-cost confidential business consulting and lower no-cost training events like this one. You'll notice a small blurb on the bottom of the slide from the SBA, the Small Business Administration, We are funded in part by the Small Business Administration and the state of New Mexico. So this is your tax dollars at work. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the SBDC in the next few slides. We offer, again, two major services: confidential business consulting and low or no cost business trainings. And there's no limit to how much no cost counseling you can receive or how many training events you can attend. We have centers throughout New Mexico, so there'll be one close to you. And if you look at the graphic in the upper right-hand corner, it shows what we do: renew, grow, launch, and start up small businesses. We welcome you to our statewide trainings like this one, and to participate in your local centers, webinars, and training events. This slide shows what we expect from our clients. My fellow business advisors and center directors want you to succeed, so you'll be assigned homework or further research. So please do the work necessary to succeed. We can't make decisions for you or offer tax or legal advice. We can only connect you to the information you need to make educated decisions. And part of making educated decisions is working with licensed professionals like attorneys or certified public accountants. Finally, I want to remind you about important surveys we send out as part of attending these trainings. Everyone who registered for this webinar received an email from Annalena saying, in anticipation of the upcoming e-commerce and alternative selling methods webinar event you have registered for, we would like you to collect some preliminary information from you. With this information in hand, we can tailor the course material to better fit your needs. And that's an exact quote from the email. I just want to make sure everybody on the call received that webinar evaluation, and you do it. And then at the end of this training, you'll receive a post webinar evaluation. So please do both. It's actually a requirement of our funding from the SBA, and we value your feedback. So now we're going to talk about the marketing plan. Why is a marketing plan important when changing or adding selling methods? It's because online sales and any other type of selling methods is all about identifying your target market or markets, analyzing your product and service offerings, creating a profitable pricing strategy, and successfully distributing your product and service, and effectively promoting your product and service. As you see, first is identifying your target market on the slide, and then we have the 4 P's of marketing: product, price, place, and promotion. And then after we think about all these things, we want to create benchmarks to analyze our outcomes. So every activity you do in business should align with your target market or markets, because these are the customers most likely to purchase your product, aka those customers you don't mind spending money on. If you think everybody in the United States is your target market, think again. You'll most likely go broke trying to promote your product across the United States, especially if it's a niche product or related to the state in which you live. So you want to create the perfect customer in your mind. When you're reading books about marketing, they call it an avatar. And then you want to describe him, her, or it, or maybe there's multiple target markets. I'll also show you a great research tool later in the presentation, offered to you at no cost through the SBDC, and it will give you more insights into your market. In the example I want to use today, we're going to talk about a women's Western store in Belen. And this person has a storefront in Belen, or this fake business has a presence in Belen, but they want to take their business online. The ideal customer would be women with household incomes of 100,000 or more, purchasing maybe high-end clothing or have an interest in Western wear clothing, and they shop online. If the clothing you sold was modeled after a country music singer, you might want to think about interest in country music, and I'm a Taylor Swift fan, so maybe it's Taylor Swift. You might want to look for women with interest in bull riding, farming, or country music. So now that we've identified our ideal customers, so the store has an ideal customer of women with household incomes of 100,000 plus with an interest in purchasing clothes and buying online. We can tailor the products or services to their needs or wants. The research tool I talked about later suggests the most popular products in women's clothing are accessories, tops, bottoms, dresses, and outerwear. The store has also been selling products through their storefront, so they know what products are hot sellers, high profit items, and may be unique to that store. It's important to keep your online inventory lean because you are charged per posting, per photograph, and per sale in some cases. It's also very time consuming to photograph these items, write descriptions, post them online, accept orders, ship, and handle returns and exchanges. So choose your products wisely and profitably. Let's talk about price next. Price is a very important factor in online sales. You may have lower overhead when selling online, but you have other costs to think about, like posting fees, payment fees, monthly subscription fees, yearly website fees, website or online store maintenance, time for fulfilling orders, and time for customer questions and emails, and returns and exchanges if you do that. It also entails navigating through websites, online marketplaces, and payment processors. Do you have the skills you need, or do you want to hire somebody to do this? This is something you're going to have to ask yourself. There may be other people selling the same products as you online for more or less, so it's best to research the selling price online. And this brings up the two common methods for setting a price: cost plus and market pricing. So if I manufactured or I made an item or bought wholesale, I could use the cost plus method, which is taking the time, labor, materials spent on that product, and then marking it up maybe 25%. And then there's market pricing, which is more common when selling online. And you could figure that by visiting other online retailers and seeing how much they're charging for the product that you're selling. And my favorite is to do just a Google search. So next, we're selling products online. So why is place important? It's because we have more choices than ever for selling products online and fulfilling orders. And you can choose to sell your products from your website, use an online marketplace, offer pickup or delivery, or use a third-party app for pickup like Amazon Hub. And I thought it was pretty cool that we have one here in Los Lunas at our all subs. After figuring out product, price, place, you can think about promotion. There are more ways to promote your business than ever before. And some common methods are blogging, creating a website, personal selling, social media marketing, word of mouth or reviews, and other media. When picking a promotional method, keep your target market and budget in mind. Some interesting ways to promote your product online include paying or giving free merchandise to bloggers or vloggers to promote your product in their article or video. Think about unboxing videos and lifestyle experts on YouTube or TikTok. You could use social media and pay for ads. And most importantly, in my opinion, is claiming your business's presence on search engines. And Google offers this for free on their website. It's called Google My Business. And you could claim your map listing for Google My Business. If you have a physical presence as well as an online presence, you could claim your Google My Business landing page, which is pretty neat. For the Women's Western store, you might consider sending a YouTube lifestyle expert some free merchandise for them to promote your products on their video. You could use Facebook ads to target women with our selected interests in places where Western wear is popular, or you could send a postcard to your repeat clients letting them know that you have an online store. After making those decisions, think of promotional goals like reaching 100,000 viewers on Facebook, track your results, and calculate your return on investment. So if you spend $100 on your Facebook campaign and reach 75,000 viewers, your cost per viewer is less than a penny. And I think that's a pretty good and effective campaign. To learn more about marketing, please visit the SBA's Marketing 101 webinar and use their worksheets to identify the items we discussed. So let me open this link, fingers crossed it opens, and it usually gives me trouble. So this is the follow-up email I'm going to send you. And typically my links won't work when I'm opening them on the slideshow. So let me open it on the follow-up email. So here's SBA's Marketing 101. It's a series of visual videos, and they're about 5-10 minute videos. They're great information. Oh, I'm not sharing it. Let me share that for you guys. So this is the link I clicked in that follow-up email. And the best thing about these is they have marketing 101 worksheets. So they have, competitive analysis worksheet. My favorite is the marketing 101 checklist, which goes over everything you need to think about before putting together a promotional campaign. And the marketing 101, a guide to winning customers. And it follows the format we talked about now. Defining your target market or markets, going over the 4 P's of marketing: product, price, place, and promotion, and thinking of benchmarks or goals and ways to analyze those benchmarks and goals. So if you have any takeaway from today about marketing, it's to visit that link on that slide and take a look at those marketing 101 checklists and a guide to winning customers. Those are great resources and offered to you at no cost. Let's go back to our slideshow. So let's talk about selling online. Many people think it's less expensive and easy to sell online, but that isn't always the case. You must research your options, fees, and staffing to make sure you have the time and manpower to successfully sell online. There are 2 options for selling online: selling directly from your website using a third-party site like Shopify, or using an online marketplace like Amazon, Etsy, or eBay. The pro of selling on your website is you save on marketplace fees. The con is you're doing all of your own marketing, search engine optimization, web maintenance, tracking orders on your own, and taking on the liability of processing and storing sensitive data. Using an online marketplace is easier because they process payments, track orders, create policies, and market your products across the web to their existing customers and have an established clientele. And if you've ever purchased anything from eBay or Etsy or Amazon, you'd notice that you get constant suggestions when somebody lists a new item. If you don't already have a website, you have to create one. And whether you use a web designer or an online website builder, there are 3 components to every website: the domain or the web address, the code or what you see or what we see when we go online, and the host for putting your website online, hosting that code. So when people type in your web address, they see what the actual web page. All these have costs associated with them, requiring monthly or annual payment, maintaining your account, and make sure to choose your provider wisely. When opting to sell online, ask yourself if you have the processes and staff to successfully sell online. There must be someone to list items, change prices, photograph your items, write product descriptions, maintain a website or e-commerce profile, return customer emails, fulfill orders, ship orders, and handle returns and exchanges. Each marketplace is different and you could use one or many, but they all require time. And like one of my favorite bands says, your garden will never grow unless you bless it with your time. Fees for online marketplaces run about 10% for product listing and payment processing. Some marketplaces have monthly fees when using a business account, adding extra videos, extra photos, and you could also pay for search engine optimizations on these marketplaces, which is you pick keywords you want your products to display under. So if I sold women's Western wear, maybe I want my listing to appear first when I type Western boots, and you could pay for these keywords. So make sure you're only doing what you're able to handle and afford. Don't waste money posting items across all e-commerce sites using an e-commerce management software if you're only selling 10 things a month. And keep the interest of your target market in mind and use those distribution channels that appeal most to them. Here are some popular e-commerce sites, and all of us may know about the top 3, Amazon, Etsy, and eBay. But there are many options vying for your money, so choose your marketplace or marketplaces very carefully and always keep the interest of your target market in mind. Since online marketplaces make more money as you sell more products, the bigger ones have great learning resources and customer service, so keep that in mind. In the follow-up email, I included links for Amazon Sellers Academy, eBay Sellers Guide, Etsy Sellers Educational Portal, and Shopify Sellers Academy. They also have great blogs and seller events. So Amazon has a great event once a year where they bring in a bunch of different speakers to talk about their experiences when selling online. eBay has a bunch of learning opportunities, and Etsy's learning opportunities are probably the most thorough and best I've seen. Shopify has a great blog, and I often post things from their blog on our Facebook page. If you sold mass-produced women's handbags, Amazon might be a good option for you. If you sold vintage women's dresses, eBay might be your main portal of distribution. And finally, if you sold hand-knit women's cardigans, Etsy might be your best bet. Sites like Shopify are e-commerce marketplaces that offer web design services or connect easily to your existing website. And large WYSIWYG, and what WYSIWYG stands for is what you see is what you get. Website builders offer e-commerce apps. And these are softwares like Wix, WordPress, and Weebly. When selling online, product photography is vital to your success. As you can see from the image on the left, it has bad lighting and isn't very attractive, versus the picture on the right that has good lighting and photo effects added. It almost makes that bottle of Clamato look like an angel. The difference speaks for itself. If you don't have experience with product photography, take a look at the Shopify article. 2 articles I put out here: the Definitive DIY Guide to Beautiful Product Photography and the Beginner's Guide to Product Photography. And they give you a lot of great insights. Had I read those before I started selling online, I could have saved about $100, and I bought a photo setup, and they show you how to make a cool little photo setup for free. You could also go to websites like Fiverr, which are listings for independent contractors, and you could type in product photography. And as you see, there's listings for a bunch of photographers willing to do product photography for you. A lot of times when you outsource your product photography, these people have displays and little things, and they can make a background transparent, and it's a little bit harder for you to do that on the dime. It's also a little bit, at least for me, it's hard for me to think of inspiration on how to set up these products to make them look more attractive to the buyers. You could also go onto stock photo websites. These are things like Pixabay, Shutterstock has a great one. Adobe Images has one. Pexels, Unsplash is another great one. And they have free and paid images. So if I was going to use one of these images for commerce, I would have to pay for the license to use it. And I always use the example of a can opener. Say I wanted a picture of somebody using my product, a can opener. Maybe I don't want to take that image. There's some free ones, or there's some that you could purchase. And again, if you're doing this for profit, you want to purchase a license to use these photos. And if you're going to put them on your website, you want to purchase a license to use these photos as well. A lot of people want to do a Google search. Let's Google my business, but let's do just google.com. Let's do can opener and images. And as you can see, I'm tempted to put any of these images on my website, but remember, you have to have a license before you can use these images on a website or on an e-commerce profile. The images that you're able to use, may be able to use for free, you could find under tools, usage rights, and Creative Commons licenses. And these images tend to be less attractive, and they may not be what you're looking for. So just keep that idea that there are copyrights and trademarks involved when using images online. Let's go back to our slideshow. Okay, perfect. Okay, so the next step in really effectively selling online is writing a compelling product description. And here are some examples of good and bad product descriptions. The one on the top is from a private seller on eBay, and the bottom is from shopchuka.com. The bottom description is appealing to their target market's needs and wants. It's very descriptive, and it uses keywords that increase search engine optimization. So keep those and things in mind when writing a product description. And if you want some more insights into that, in the follow-up email, I put links for how to write a compelling product description and on ways to write product descriptions that inform and persuade your customers. Those are great articles, and they talk a little bit more about the search engine optimization I just spoke about. And as you can see here, the one on eBay is pretty terrible compared to the one on the professional website. So there's a lot of money that can be made by just improving a few things on e-commerce marketplaces like eBay and Etsy. And I've noticed that many sellers on Amazon may not speak English as their primary language, so things get lost in translation, or they don't provide the buyer with the information they need or want. For instance, I was trying to buy a 2.5 quart pitcher so I can make tea directly in a pitcher. And everything was in milliliters. And it was kind of difficult for me to find the size of a pitcher I needed when most of the listings were in milliliters. Always keep your target and market in mind when writing these descriptions. And the descriptions here happen to be for women's rain boots. So think about what attracts a woman to these boots, where they will wear these boots, and about their buying behaviors and interests. Also use compelling keywords related to your products. Keywords are words that search engines and databases closely associate with the product or service. So if you were to talk about boots, you might think of using keywords like waterproof, leather, rubber, comfortable, or durable. And chuka.com used keywords like sleek, plush, waterproof, rubber outer sole, self-cleaning, and rainproof. Now that we talked about selling online, let's discuss pop-up shops and flea markets. I group these together because they have many of the same requirements. They just cater to two different markets. Pop-ups cater to a high-end market, and flea markets tend to cater to a more general audience. Pop-up shops are a lot of work and take lots of planning because you have to follow state, municipal, and county licensing requirements, get proper inspections, purchase insurance, which is optional but vital, and it takes a lot of market research and planning. Pop-up shops are usually used by established brands and are a great way to take an online product to a storefront, or to test a new product or product bundle, and to test a location or a demographic. So let's take a deeper dive into permitting and licensing by looking at the Small Business Development Center at UNM Valencia's Quick Start sheet. So let me open up this email. And I went ahead and just sent this email before the webinar started, just so if in case you didn't receive it, you could shoot me a Q&A or a chat, let me know. So let's look for this quick start sheet. It happens to be the first link. And would you guys raise your hands for me if you're seeing that quick start sheet? It starts with business licenses at the top. Thank you, Dory. Okie dokes, I'm going to lower hands. So the way I created this, we're going to go over the basics of starting a business, because when you start doing a pop-up shop, you really have to think about creating a business from scratch before you begin selling. And pop-up shops, let me give you a good example of one before we begin. If you think about the Spirit Halloween store, they usually go into vacant storefronts in a certain area. And where I grew up in Albuquerque, they would usually pop up around, I don't know, the San Mateo, Comanche sort of area. And they would be open as a storefront for about 2 months. And then they'd go back to their presence online. So when you're thinking about starting up a new business, you have to decide what you want your business structure to be. And if you're selling online, I hope you already have a business structure, but it's easy to just start selling online without a business structure, and that defaults you as a sole proprietor. If you wanted to do a pop-up shop, you think you're going to take on extra liability, You might want to consider a limited liability corporation, an S Corp, a limited partnership, etc. And these are all registered through the New Mexico Secretary of State's office. If you're a sole proprietor, all you need is a business license. You don't need to do any sort of articles of incorporation. But I do recommend it, especially when you go into a storefront, you take on a little bit of liability there. Next, you need a federal employer identification number. And this is the unique identifying number that the IRS gives you when you have to pay federal tax withholdings for your employees. But you also need one to open up a bank account at most credit unions and banks in New Mexico. So it's a must do. And if you're going to go into a storefront, I do recommend you open up a bank account in your business name. After that, you need to apply for a gross receipts tax ID number. And for us selling solely online right now, usually we don't have to worry about gross receipts tax at all because we use an online marketplace like eBay or Etsy, and they collect the gross receipts tax and pay it to the state for you. If you're going into physically do business somewhere in a storefront, you have to collect gross receipts tax for the state. You also need the gross receipts tax ID number before you can apply for a business license. And the thing about gross receipts tax IDs, or now they call them BTINs, they used to call them CRS numbers, now they're BTINs, business identification numbers. You have to file your gross receipts tax reports whether you collect no money or whether you collect $1 million. And they're due usually on a quarterly basis. If you are a pop-up shop, or maybe you operate maybe only 3 months out of the year at a flea market, you could do casual filing, and you could only file maybe once a year. But think about how you want to file those gross receipts tax. And remember, gross receipts is passed on to the buyer typically, and and if you go to Walmart, you look at your receipt, it's that 8 point whatever percent, 7 point whatever percent we pay on top of our bill. And then your last step in creating a business is getting a business license anywhere where you'll have a physical presence. So if I'm an online retailer, I wanted to go create a pop-up shop in a vacant storefront next to, say, Walmart in Los Lunas, I'd have to get an inspection and apply for a business license through the village of Los Lunas. And if you're going to be there for 3 days, I think a temporary would be fine. But usually the cost for a 3 to 10 day temporary vendor permit is the same as a full year business license. So it's easier just to get the full year in most cases. And then I'm going to talk about food trucks next. So if you served more than one location, maybe you had a pop-up shop 2 days a week in Los Lunas and 2 days a week in Bosque Farms, you would have to get a business license anywhere where you'll physically conduct commerce. Let's see, I got a cue. Go back to our slides. And here, again, here's the Spirit Halloween store. There's some examples of places that have an online presence year-round and a pop-up presence casually. And there's only 350 days left till Halloween, guys. So that's one of the iconic pop-up shops. Let me get rid of this. West Elm. So what West Elm is they're an online furniture retailer, home goods retailer. And they went into one of the Macy's, I believe it was. So they created a pop-up shop inside Macy's because our large department stores, they tend not to sell furniture online or furniture in their stores anymore. So they actually took their furniture to Macy's, set up some furniture for sale. And that was a great way to test a demographic of customers, a great partnership between two stores. And a neat idea. Mene is the next one I want to show you. So Mene, what they do is they retail 24 karat gold jewelry online, but they decided to create a pop-up shop inside Selfridges, which is like the Macy's of Canada and London. So they were able to go after that high-end demographic in person, and they always have an online presence. And then the most appetizing of my examples was the Cheetos restaurant. So what Cheetos did is they decided to have a pop-up restaurant in the Tribeca area of New York City. So what they did is they rented a vacant storefront. They had to go through all the business startup procedures. They had to contact the environment department and get the kitchen inspected. And they hired a professional chef to make recipes using the Cheetos products. And this was probably more of a marketing activity for Cheetos to test a demographic, to introduce a product to a new demographic. And I think it was very effective for them. So let's go back to our slideshow. So next I want to talk to you about food trucks. Just like with pop-up shops, food trucks and carts are permitting intensive and require great logistics skills. In order to operate a food truck, you need to be in compliance with the New Mexico Environment Department's in the New Mexico Environment Department as a mobile kitchen, and this requires using a commercial kitchen as a commissary. After that, you have to find a commercial space to park your food truck. This means contacting property owners and managers, creating a lease for the space, and consistently parking in that area. You should also consider a location with lots of traffic and a high concentration of your target market. This type of distribution is great for testing a new product, for an established brand, or a new location for a new business. It's important to make a good working relationship with your chosen area's planning and zoning department, because they can make or break your business idea. I mentioned target market earlier, and you need to draw awareness to your new business, and this means promotion. How are you going to reach your target market, especially if you have more than one location? Do you need a website, social media profile? Do you want to do a postcard mailing? It depends on your market research and the market you serve. So let's see some examples of food trucks. Sanchez Taco, they park here in Los Lunas, and they have multiple locations throughout Albuquerque. I actually see them on my way home almost every Thursday, Friday. And I think they do a very good job because they have a website presence that you could go to. They actually have a contact page where you could email or call a location. And they have their menu online. And I think many food trucks lack this sort of presence. And it's probably pretty low cost for them to have this presence online. If you claim your Google My Business profile, they give you the opportunity to create a free website, and it's pretty nice. And then here's some food trucks that only have a presence on social media. And I still think they're pretty effective as long as you're telling people where you are, have a phone number to contact, maybe have a menu online. And I think their promotion is pretty effective. Any pictures of food presented nicely are effective. And I have a soft spot in my heart for waffles for sure. And then here's Crazy Dave's Hamburgers. Oh, he just changed business idea as well. Now he's doing landscaping. So I'll update that during our next presentation. Just as long as you find a way to successfully promote your product or service. Now I've been talking to you about these research tools, and these research tools help you tremendously when you have a solely online product or service, or you're trying to find new markets for your product or service. So the first one I want to show you is IBIS World. And what IBIS World is are their economic industry forecasts put together by economists and business analysts. And you have to be a client of the SBDC to get these reports. And if you were to purchase one on your own, they'd be upwards of $800. So let me go to IBIS World. And let's look at food trucks in the US. I like to download the PDF of the report and send this to my client. And I'll go over some of the high points with you. So the first part of this report I really love is the key external drivers. I also call these the key economic drivers. These are the things that happen in the economy that drive your business and your industry. So for food trucks, consumer spending, consumer confidence index, or how good people feel about the future of our economy, healthy eating index, an urban population, and the price of food, agricultural price index. It will tell you your first and second tier suppliers and your first and second tier buyers if you happen to have second tier buyers. It tells you what the key external drivers were doing between 2016 and 2021. And it looked like most were increasing. It tells you revenue in the industry, what's going to happen between 2016 and 2026. And here's 2019 right here. There's the onset of COVID-19. Looks like the industry is going to pop back up and it's going to stay pretty steady for the long run there. Profit in that industry looks like it's on a growing trend. The profit margin in this industry is 5.9%. So almost 6 cents out of every dollar goes into the business's profit. Think about that. That tells me you have to sell in large quantities to make money. And it looks like the profit margin is going to rise, or it did rise between 2016 and 2021. The number of businesses grew 8.3%, or it's predicted to grow 8.3% between 2021 and 2026. Employment's on the growth trend as well as wages. So that bodes pretty well for this industry. Then it tells you what product or services are most sought after across the United States. So let's see what type of food in food trucks is most popular. And that's American food. So we do like our hot dogs and our hamburgers. It gives you a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It tells you the industry performance. So you see revenue, consumer spending, which was an economic driver, and the consumer confidence index. So as you can see here, revenue in this industry is highly, highly connected to consumer spending and consumer confidence. So it looks like we had horrible consumer confidence in 2020. We're going to see a increase in profits between 2021 and 2022, and then it's going to steady off until about 2026. And this is a prediction, but it's the prediction by experts, and it's the best thing we could go off of. And then I told you when I was talking about the marketing plan that it gives you insights into your market. I'll show you that. So let's see where this industry is in the business life cycle. And it happens to be in the quantity growth phase of the business life cycle, which means more businesses like this are going to pop up over the next, say, 5 years. And then it tells you who your major markets are. So if I was a food truck, I'd want to go after those consumers aged 25 to 44. So what are the needs and wants of those consumers? Then you could think about, is it men, is it women? And we could start to look for places where there's high concentration of this age group using our other database tools. And those are the high points of the IBIS World Report. Let me show you Reference USA or Data Excel. They just changed their name to Data Excel. Let me show you how this could help you. So we could do, there's two types of searches. We could do businesses. And when you're writing a business plan or doing a marketing plan, you want to know who your competition is. They could pull your competition in the US businesses database. If you are an online business that catered to other businesses, say you sold sheet metal, corrugated metal online, I could find those businesses most likely to purchase from you, and you could send those people a letter saying, you know, I'm online, we charge a little less, it's more effective for you. buy from us. But most of you on the call today probably cater directly to the customer. So let me show you what this database can do. Most industries are usually aligned with household income. So for a food truck, we're probably looking for households with a 50,000 plus household income, or maybe 50 to 100,000 household income. And age, maybe we could find those 25 to 44, and then we could do city. So let's do Albuquerque. And then this, I could make a table here, and I could do estimated home income, and I want to sort this by zip code. So this could give me an idea of where these people within the 50,000 plus household income, what zip code they're in. It looks like 87121 might be a great place for that. 87105 might be another great place. 121. Yeah, I would say 87121 would look like a good zip code for a food truck. If I got rid of age, I could see the results for people in a certain with addresses in a certain zip code, in a certain age range, or I mean in a certain income range. I could do this for county, zip code. And then we have some other search engine tools right here, and this could really help you with your market planning. Next, I want to show you a free database. You could access this yourself. It's called Census Business Builder. And the small business edition was not working for me last time. Let's see if it works for me this time. And it's sorted by NAICS codes. If you're working with the SBDC Business Advisor, they would know your NAICS codes. Or if you're in one of the more common businesses, you could pick from their little quick select options. Say we want to do Belen, New Mexico. We could create a report or go to a map, and we want to create a report because I'm more of a read it and learn type of person. So I like the report I could print out and look at. And it tells you about your customers, businesses like yours, and consumer spending in the area, which is my favorite. So it tells you what the population of Belen is, 7,403, and gives you other demographic characteristics. Gives you some socioeconomic characteristics. What's the median household income in that area? And my rule of thumb is if you want to do a retail establishment or a food establishment, you'd want to go into an area with at or above the national household income level. So let's see what we could just Google that. So the median household income was $67,521 in 2020. So Belen might not be a great place for retail, but there's still options. You could see educational attainment. Here's housing characteristics, and if you're a tradesperson on the call, this is a great resource for you because you probably want to go into an area with old homes that have high values. And this information is from 2019, I believe. It gives you information about businesses like yours. And my favorite part of this webinar or this program is household expenditures. So these are household expenditures per year in certain categories. So if we wanted to go off of the example we used in our slideshow, women's clothing, the average household in Belen per year spends about $486.67 on women's clothing. So maybe there is room for a women's clothing store in Belen. Gives you other stats in other industries. And this is just a great starting point for any sort of business plan or marketing plan. Let's go back to our slideshow. I also have access to Mintel marketing reports, and these are reports put together by professional marketers that talk about advertising and promotional trends in the industry. Like, is your market on Facebook? Are they on TikTok? Get into that a little bit more. And marketing research, like the site says, it's vital to the success of your operation. Okay, next, many people come to my office and tell me social media marketing is going to change their business outcomes, but that's far from the truth. I want to tell you a little bit about the why about social media marketing and concentrate mainly on Facebook. Before you begin any social media marketing efforts, do market research and put intense thought into your target market or markets. If you don't know who you're serving and what they like, you will not have any success online. The target market on Facebook tends to be women 35 to 55 years with higher incomes and typical consumer interests. If you have a retail store or restaurant, this is a great place to start with some paid marketing. When you dive into social media marketing platform, think about using their paid advertising services and learn how to use them. So Facebook has Facebook Blueprint or Facebook Business, Facebook Blueprint, Facebook Business, and they have online courses and certifications you could get for free, learning how to manage ads, create ads, find your target market, create an online a marketplace on Facebook. It's just really great, all the information they offer for free. Facebook also has the great learning center called Blueprint. Take advantage of the free learning tools for sure. And Facebook runs on viewer attention and interaction. So the better you know Facebook, the better you know how to use Facebook, the better they do. And they might even make you might even make a sale off of it. Okay. Some other helpful resources are listed on the slide. My favorite and most practical is Google My Business. And if you take nothing else away from this webinar, it's to claim your business on Google My Business. So let me show you that. It's google.com/business. And it allows you to manage your the way you show up on the map. And if you have a physical presence, you could claim your Google My Business profile when somebody searches for you. So let me show you our Google My Business profile. Oh, look, my photo's back online. I guess I'm more popular again. So let's see. This is our presence online since we have a physical storefront. We have our website. You could put in your website so people have a quick link. You could put in your current address so people have directions. People could save this if they're logged into Google. Gives you a great location, great phone number. You could update things like, are you closed temporarily due to COVID? Are you going to close for the Thanksgiving Day holiday? You could collect reviews, and these reviews are also collected from Facebook. And reviews speak 1,000 words about you, literally. You could put a little bit about your business, and then you could put posts. So these could be special offers for people who found you using the on your Google My Business page. For example, I put this post about LIDA recovery grants, the deadline for LIDA recovery grants being December 7th. And then I put learn more, so you could go directly to their website to learn more about LIDA grants. But this could be, I have a new service, I have a new product coming to my store, go online. I'm now selling, I don't know, Nike apparel. And then I have Social Media Examiner on there. This is a social media, this is a video blog put together by social media marketing experts. And they have videos, usually weekly, with great advice. New Mexico Internet Entrepreneurs is a great Facebook group created by Barb Tomlin, and it's a forum for New Mexico entrepreneurs to connect, get helpful tips, and post new ideas. The New Mexico Small Business Development Center and SBA websites have numerous free learning opportunities, useful articles, and great documents, so please visit the website to take advantage of your taxpayer-funded resources. The New Mexico Bar Association keeps a database of attorneys who pass the bar exam in New Mexico and allows you to search by location and practice area. If you need the advice of an attorney, this is a great place to start. And they also offer a service where they can connect you to an attorney for a 30-minute consultation for $35. And finally, the New Mexico Council of Governments handles traffic counts. So if I was a pop-up shop or a food truck, I might want to see what the average daily and average weekday traffic was on a stretch of road where I'm going to park. I also put links in the follow-up email to the New Mexico Taxation and Revenue Department's free webinars about gross receipts tax and new businesses, and the IRS's self-employed tax center, which gives you lots of information about your federal tax obligations. Since this is a COVID-19 sponsored webinar, this is a collection of links for some of the most accurate and reputable information about COVID-19 for employers. The first link is to New Mexico Department of Health's guidance for employers. The second is for the New Mexico Safe Certified program, and this is a free interactive learning module about how businesses should operate during COVID-19 restrictions. The third link is OSHA's publication on employer COVID safe practices. The fourth link is information about COVID-19 from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. The fifth link, and most important in my view, is an article by the EEOC called What You Should Know About COVID-19 and the ADA, the Rehabilitation Act, and other EEO laws. We are in an ever more litigious society, so this is a must read for everyone on the call today. The sixth link is for newmexico.gov, where you can find the most up-to-date state information regarding COVID-19, as well as lending and grant programs from the state. And don't forget about no-cost webinars and counseling services offered by the SBDC, our partners at SCORE, the Service Corps of Retired Executives, the Small Business Administration, and the New Mexico Economic Development Department. Perfect. And then how we measure our success together. Now that we talked about how we could help you, this is how you can help the SBDC. As part of offering our services, we need your help to ensure our services are around for more years to come. So we ask that you participate in our surveys, report economic impacts because of our assistance to your business advisor or center director, and write a letter of support to your local legislator about your experience with the SBDC. All information is kept confidential and is only reported in aggregate to our funders, the state of New Mexico, and the Small Business Administration. We went over a lot of information, so let's do a quick recap of what we learned. Let me take a quick swig. Number one, market research and planning is very important. You now have access to the resources you need to make better educated marketing decisions. So take an hour each month or every quarter to use the SBA's market planning templates and make a marketing plan. 2, know your target market or markets. This is the least you must do before you spend any time or money on promotional activities. 3, do you have the skills to set up and manage an online store? Now that you know what the major activities are, does this seem like something you can or want to do? Did you think online selling was so labor intensive? Well, now you know. So do you have the staff to answer customer questions, ship, and handle returns? Number 5, if you want to start a pop-up shop, are you able to meet the state, municipal, and county requirements and tax requirements for your venture? And 6, and most importantly, are you prepared to handle the extra cleaning requirements, mandatory capacity limits, and ever-changing regulations for public safety? If your pop-up shop had to close for 2 weeks because somebody tested positive for COVID-19, would you be able to do this? That's a good recap. This slide provides contact information for SBDC programs PTAC, IBA, and the New Mexico Tech Technology Commercialization Accelerator. The Procurement Technical Assistance Center is a government-funded program providing assistance to small businesses who want to sell their goods or services to the government, educational institutions, or tribal entities. The International Business Accelerator is a one-stop shop of resources for New Mexican businesses and individuals wishing to introduce their product or service into the global market. And the New Mexico Technology Commercialization Accelerator offers no-cost confidential counseling regarding intellectual property. This slide continues the list of small business resource partners: SCORE, or the Service Corps of Retired Executives; WEST, or the Women's Business Center Program; and VBOC, or the Veterans Business Outreach Center. Here is the contact information for your small business support team, and we are funded by the SBA. And a lot of people ask us about SBA lending resources. So I included a link to their SBA resource guide. I put a link because it changes every year, and the link usually stays good for the download. If you visit page 33, these are the different types of SBA loan guarantees offered by the SBA. The most common are the 7A or the microloans. And just above that is a listing of all the SBA participating lenders. And if you want more information about that, please reach out to your local SBDC. This concludes the slideshow, and now I'll go into the Q&A and answer any questions in the Q&A or chat. And I want to thank you again for spending time with me today. So let's go into the Q&A. Amy says I did not. Amy, if that was an accident, let us know. If you want to expand on that, please let us know. Okay, I don't have any Q&A. We actually are down to just one attendee, Doreen. So Doreen, I'm going to give you the ability to talk if you want to. And you're on mute right now, but if you want to speak or ask a question, you could unmute and you're free to ask. Doreen says you're good. Well, thank you for spending time with me, Doreen. And since you don't have any questions, it looks like the time I put aside for Q&A will go back to you. Thanks for spending time with me again. And I hope to see you in our future webinars. Goodbye.